And if you couldn't get it, it's all right, and she just went until finally you got it, and she's clapping and all happy for you because you finally got it, And my youngest sister didn't have a Hawaiian name.
Who's that?
And then and then Auntie Edith gave her a name at the halal. See, a lot of us, if we don't have a Hawaiian name, your kumu gives you a Hawaiian name at the halal. And my sister's Hawaiian name was Miliaka.
How did she get Miliaka?
That's because she was always Miliaka with everything. And so that was her name at the halal, and she was very proud of that.
Okay, so this is a really good transition. I mean, it's not on the guiding questions, but because there are a number of people that she named, and she also named Kibala'o. How did that happen?
That was interesting. That was up at the house after we performed at the crater.
Yeah.
And it was at the owner of the volcano house at his personal home. And Auntie said, I have a name for you now. And she said, Kibala'o. And what does it mean and how do you spell it?
Yeah.
And she said, Kibala'o was the son of Kalani Opu'u, who was the chief of all of Hawaii. And I go, wow. Okay, I have another man's name. And then I found out how to spell it, and I thought, oh gee, that's such a hard name to remember, How? But I just grew into it, and it made me feel really strong.
Yeah.
It made me feel really good, and it helped my hula.
Yeah.
It brought strength to my dancing. And I have to recall one time I first married Monica in the Civic, and we piled against Pololo, and that was my favorite hula to this day. I love that hula. And we finished, and we're walking off, and Auntie was sitting in the corner by where we go in the back to take our clothes off. And we're going, and we're all sweat, and then we're walking out, and she's sitting there like, oh my God, oh, you look just like my mom with the papu sweeping the floor, which meant that we was IHA.
Yeah.
Because if our papu was sweeping the floor, we made her happy because we'd been down to that. So that was a great moment for me when she said that. We made her happy. We did really good together.
Oh, and one thing about her saying, because she bent down, one thing that reminds me, our Mary used to say, ilalo, bend down, and she'd go and she'd say, ilalo, no ilalo, or she just keeps saying that in between the singing or the chanting. And then when her voice got a little sharper, we knew she was getting angry at us. We weren't bending. And then she started to say our name and ilalo. So that by the time you were through dancing, our parents were scolding us because we didn't allow enough. So you got off the stage, and my mother used to be one of those that helped dress the cake. And my mother used to say, I heard your name. I said, only one time. Because we count how many times she said everybody's name. So I made sure that was the only time she called my name to ilalo or to minoaka. If we didn't smile, she'd go minoaka. And then if we still didn't smile, she'd say the name and minoaka. by the end of the night, if we didn't smile, we'd get scoldings too going out. But that's how she do it in Hawaiian, to kind of nicely say, we need to bend, we need to smile, we need to put our hands up or elbows up. She tell us about our elbows. And she tell us if we're not swaying, if the skirt is not moving. So we were very kind. I didn't like to get corrected all the time, so I made sure I did it so I wouldn't get scolded. Yes, it teaches you to, do better. And then you go for perfection, actually. And then somehow you become hard on yourself because you want to get it right, yeah. And so at home you're practicing. I hear my son all the time chanting in the shower. He does it as he's practicing or whatnot. He's practicing his chant. There was one incident where Auntie Nalani was teaching us a new chant. And she said, okay, we need to practice. I have to put on my glasses to read the chant. And then she said, you need to practice in the shower. I said, I cannot read in the shower. I don't have my glasses. And then she said, do it in the car. I cannot concentrate. And doing the thing. And then everybody in the class used to record her, so that when we chat, and I said, I don't know how to use the recorder. And she said, you seem to have an answer for everything. But that's how the practice is going. And then I said, oh, okay, I'll go home and try. But, you have to find one way to try and do it. You cannot just say you cannot, but I kept saying, I cannot read without my glasses, I cannot do this, well, you need to do something. But you tend to learn to discipline yourself, and then you practice it. And then if I ask Kamomi, can you help me? No, Ma, you need to learn. And then I go, oh yeah, I need to learn. And then if I ask Manai would help me a little, he'd help me do or whatnot. And then when Kamomi says, Ma, can you help me with the sewing? You need to learn. Going back to you.
She's a sewing auntie,
Yeah. I'm the seamstress. I sew all my grandchildren's costumes and my daughter's costumes when they were performing. So when I needed help to learn something and needed to make a lei, I asked Kamomi, because Kamomi and Manai are my two lei makers. They're the ones that can do it. And if I ask Kamomi, she said, Ma, you need to learn to do your own. And if I ask Manai, he'd help me until I could get it. Then when Kamomi needed for me to sew something or do something, you need to learn. I tell her the same thing. And then she tells Manai, what's wrong with Mom? And then he tells her, I think you need to help her a little. You're not helping her, so now she's giving it back to you. Yeah, but that's how it goes. And in the halal, everybody helps each other. And that's one thing I learned, because we all learn everything together. You learn how to make the leis, you learn how to make your implements, you learn everything. And when you have enough time, you can ask the next person to help.
So that's thank you for saying that last, because of these three people and more. One of them is Kalanipua, she's in right here, and Mamo, Mahorang is sitting over there. There's long time dancers in the hall because of them. Many times I didn't need to make my own pa'o as a child dancer. And many times I didn't need to make my own lace, not because I didn't want to, but because it was natural for the older dancers to help. Kamu is responsible for helping Tangoro perfect the ways for which I married him. So, and then there are also many instances where we don't do this. Sometimes we do it in the halal, but we don't do it as much as we used to, and that is where the travel and a whole bunch of you guys would go and go to Malka, going with the teams for everybody, and get the kimono for everybody, bring it back, so we can do that. What did that kind of experience teach you?
Well, even though we did that,
Yeah.
a few of us would go and gather. It was more appropriate for just a handful of people to go over to the forest. So you don't have like 20 people ravaging the forest at the time. But what was important is that within Halal Kikuki, when we were down is that everybody made their own thing.
Yeah.
Everybody made their own names, everybody made their own tattoo, everybody made their own, everybody, instruments, the uli, the tattoo, everybody, the ipuneke, everybody made their own thing. Because as we all come to recognize, we put some of ourselves, we're connected to them. So it's important that we not just learn, but we understand the connection we have to what we do and how we do that. But I want to go back to your original question about how was it when we first started dancing hula?
Yes.
Okay, so if you picture this room, this is the old studio, and there's a wall here, there's a wall there, there's a bunch of windows over there, there's a wall here, there's no mirrors or anything, and there's a small door here, there's a door here, we walk in, but it's like, not even, like I said, not even the size of this room, but off of this corner was a table and chair, and I think Edith would sit there. And I'm sure she must have been exhausted walking up a flight of stairs going up to the second floor. Coming into the room, that was her spot. And Hua, at that time, when we first started dancing, Hua would teach us the motions. And Auntie would be on that side, just watching everything, just taking, she was the who. But she didn't teach us the dance. It was Hua who showed us the motion. And Pua had just come back from California a couple of years ago. He put them and just moved back from California a couple of years ago. Alani was still in Paula, but making her transition over to Hilo. So it's kind of interesting.
She didn't teach it right away.
She didn't teach us right away.
Dance in the back row.
Yeah, she was one of the dancers. But Pua was the a la carte, and she would be the one to teach us. So as long as Auntie Edith was alive, Pua and then Melanie were the a la carte. And we knew that. That was unspoken, but we knew that. And it wasn't until Auntie Edith passed away that Pua and Melanie came together and decided what would be the next steps. I remember we were in Halal, and they told us to leave. They closed the door. Oh, what's going on? Oh boy, that was a big one. But they were able to come to some agreement as to how they would move Halal people along.
Transition.
How they would have this transition. And so they opened the door, came back in, and we continued. So, but it's interesting because if you know Auntie Edith, you know that physically she's not capable of good ways or coming up and down or or anything like that. But she can tell you how she wants the motion done, and she can tell you, basically, she had the vision of the dance. So when something was choreographed, it was basically Auntie telling Pua what to do. Pua teaching us the dance. So that's how, when we learned hula back in those days, that's how halal was run. And then Malani came in. She originally was one of the dancers at that time, back in 75, 76, 77, that we used to enter Kamehameha Day hula competition. She was one of the dancers back then too. So, but then, as time passed, then she also taught us the dances. But Auntie had her spot. That was her spot, and she provided the oversight as the tool to what was going on.
I want to share something about our kumus. We were so fortunate to have the opportunity to have 3 kumus, to teaching us at the same time. As Auntie Edith, Kua, and Nalani. So in their own qualities, they have their strengths. Remember, Kua was excellent with the power. Yeah. And then Nalani was the and then Auntie her wealth and gift to compose on the spot. And she had the most nicest way of correcting people.
She's so gentle, kind, soft.
You have to get one down. Such a very gentle way, and then she would always say like Sharon would say, I will eat here. Not today, but maybe tomorrow.
Be better.
But no give up.
Yeah.
Keep trying.
She always
That was
encouraged.
Auntie Edith, as a person. Very kind, very, very understanding, and very polite.
She wants to jump in
I just
on that.
wanted to, because I got to see, I couldn't get enough. I just always wanted to be around Auntie. I was in the halal, just observing one day, and it was just Auntie choreographing Pua and Nalani Kehaʻalapuna. And so I'm watching as she's telling them what to do. And when they did Ami Ikai, and I went, whoa! I couldn't believe my eyes that they did these. Wow! We hadn't done that before. And here, Nalani says, you don't teach unless you can do. That was the old days. And so when I saw when Nalani just learning that from Auntie, who was, and I'm just the observer.
They could.
I couldn't believe my
They were
amazing.
perfect, wonderful example. Because they were strong, well-built women,
Yes,
and they were able to do the niniu,
that's right.
yes, and the back bend
Yes.
at that time too.
And that's why they expected us that we were going to do that.
So you look up to them and you think, my gosh, they can do that. And I'm zipping it, And I remember one married monarch in the 70s. They had 2 separate judges, the Lama sisters for Awana, and then the Kahikwa judges was Kalenda Silva, Bokalia Montgomery, and then one more, I think. And I think Auntie Edith and Pua then did a whole course, I think, where from the concession section of the bleachers, and he chanted toward the stage. The Pua and Nalani,
We were hopeless.
I forgot what they call it. Call it the dog walk.
They did the
Yeah,
whole
but they did the dog walk from there all the way up to the stage, following Auntie. And something to behold, and to witness.
Also, too, you got to remember back in those days, there was a question on this paper about Malawi Hula Studio. And back in those days, a lot of, they weren't really halal, they were called Hula Studios. When we joined, it was halal food. And this was about the time in 74, 75, when there was this big renaissance of Hawaiian essence with the Hui Alaloa and Molokai, pushing forth what was happening with Ka'olave, everything was happening to our people who were being not bombarded, but there was this consciousness of what was going on as a nation. But there was a relearning and rethinking of what it is that we were. But I want to say back then, when we first started, we weren't just learning Hawaiian. We were learning Bali, we were learning Tahitian, we were learning Fiji.
Because Andy wanted us to do the international festival night at Chilo. And she needed a representation for pollination. So Kamala and I at Hawaii Isles House, we were trying to learn how to beat the cracker can. You already know what the cracker can is. Yeah, so trying to, but we never had coordination. So that was.
But after that, then came the focus of, in particular hula. That became the focus. So we moved away from those early years to concentrate on hula.
Yeah, that's why I was saying that we learned from, like Jack Brand, we learned Tahitian from him and his wife, and so we were able to do Tahitian and yet still dance the Maori dances and still dance the Hawaiian dances. But when my daughter said, "You dance Tahitian?" I said, "Yeah." "You belong to that Tahitian group?" "No, it's just at that time all the hula instructors all got together and they taught a little of their, their expertise too with Mary Pt.1 also. We got to learn from Rose Kumo, we learned from the best, and we all came together and then and not like now, you only stick with one halal and do one thing. Not that I don't want to be, I enjoy being in this halal, so, but, it was so diversified that we could use everybody's expertise and learn.
There was a lot going on in hula back then. A lot more, maybe because we were involved, but, you had Kipolani Chatran, you had Kipolani Nahiva, you had
Martha Kayabe,
Yakayabe,
Judah Higaki,
yeah. I mean, there were a lot of halal.
God's Hula Studio,
God's Hula Studio.
Upstairs of Pineapple Cafe.
So, but, and Uncle George was from here, Uncle George Television. He was in Honolulu for a while. It wasn't until, the early 80s, or late 70s, when he moved back. And he was in Hilo for a little while, but, in terms of, and then, of course, there's Johnny LaHole.
Because Johnny LaHole used to dance with me.
Yeah. We grew up.
Well, Johnny was the musician.
The musician.
Yeah.
And we're all you folks' age, at this time, I can see it in your eyes, the folks were like that, just very curious, wanting to learn. You're the same age we were.
That was kind of fun.
The young and pliable days.
For us, hula was just a big, big part of our life.
Yes.
It influenced a lot of what we were doing back then. Even after every marijuana or after maybe every combat competition, we were at the party till the sun rose.
To celebrate all the hard work.
No, just to celebrate.
We're college students.
Yeah.
Elementary.
We just wanted to be married. How are you? Like back in those days. Okay, so up at to OL, that house at the very end where Lorraine Shin lives, where BJ Pitt was born and raised. Okay, she used to rent that house before and all that fixed up, and I lived with her one year, and we used to have the best halal parties up there. It was a big old house that used to creak anywhere you walked, and then you could be by yourself downstairs, and upstairs it feels like someone's walking because the house is creaking. But
There was also a lot of room for us to do our workshops, do our things, do our lay gurus,
I always
practice.
I always remember one of the parties because after Mary Monica one year, we were up there. We were in the main hall. It was kind of like this. And Auntie Edith was sitting in her chair. Next to her was Auntie Eleanor Harnhome, who was too. Auntie Eleanor had gone to the Hula Kapu, and so she was very well respected. She was sitting, both of them were sitting down like this. The halal, we all down to
We have 3 lines of bands and
to perform for Auntie Eleanor and for Auntie
It was Allah Bahaba.
and then she finally said, well, what time is it? 3 o'clock? I think it's time we gotta go home.
Because she knew that the party really started after she left. So.
But it wasn't just our halal party. I mean, we would go like down to Kelka, at Nate Tuluma's house, for Johnny Lamo's big party. I mean, then we would go over to this other place for halal Kikilanila party, and then we go over to this other place. The parties were happening back then.
You're making everybody performance. So much fun of it. All your mana is in everything you make. So when you perform, you have all that money you put out there.
I want to touch about something about making costumes.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, because we didn't have a lot of money, and Nalani never charged us for a hula lesson. So we danced. But when Nalani came out and Poland came out with a costume idea, we had to go out and go gather, figure it out. I remember one time we were down Banyan Drive. My pickup truck, we were like hacking away all those roots coming down from the trees, and to come out with a dye, to dye our and amazingly, it was beautiful. I guess, I don't know who was the leader at that time, but we went halfway at it, we bowed that thing till the thing was like dissolved, and then put the tail on it, and it was beautiful.
We had to do our own dyeing. We had to make the fire outside with the bikini out there.
Especially when we had to make the hull skirt. So, we didn't have the manual or an expert person. So everybody had their own interpretation. Some would remove the bar completely and then soak it in buckets. Some would bend it to separate the fibers. And some would put it in buckets of water, leave it for months or weeks. It would go, whatnot. I remember mine, my mother was trying to help me, and so she threw Clorox in it. But it actually made the hull kind of yellow. So I had to make another hull skirt. But it was all through that kind of traveling there. Right down to Ulikamaka, to the local wife. Sit on the rock with your pipe, your knife, and scraping all that saliva off, or that you know, there's a lifelong. So that now we, so the father can separate. But all of those types of labor, we all had to do our own. Even the only kapala case, and then cutting it, and all of that stuff, you have to do it all on your own.
But through it all, I mean, basically, when I say the hula was our life, I mean,
It was our life.
it was fun. We had a lot of fun. It was spiritual. It was physical. It was educational. It was cultural. It was all that we were doing back then.
It was wonderful to
I mean,
experience.
we had we were in college and we did that, and we then eventually went to work. But hula was the thing that helped to bring.
That was our passion.
Yeah, that was our passion.
It made you really love it.
You have passion in something that you get to do when you live. You bleed passion into everything else you do in your life.
Yeah.
Also, too, halal. I just want to share this. It was a very strict halal, during Nalani especially. Not poor too, but mostly Nalani. You dare not ask a question. You dare not ask her to repeat it. Because her eyes alone would make you think twice.
Yeah.
Nalani. But when we learn, we have to learn through, going it over and using your own strengths and senses. And, and see. So we never question the clues on anything. Yes. And I remember this loudly and clearly because she told one of these new students, you are to mimic and not interpret. Those, the new students. That's what she tried to teach. So I guess every halal has their own method and approach to hula.
Well, and even within one halal, intergeneration, Kumu, as you just said, had their own method.
Oh, I can attest to that. my two daughters had Antipua. My two younger ones, Kamome and Manai, had Antinalani. And Kamome and Manai are deathly afraid of Antipua. They are deathly afraid because they think she's so strict and she's so this and she's so that. And in the same respect, my two older ones are deathly afraid of Antinala. They don't even want to approach her to ask her a question, even if it's not hula related. They don't like to go and approach Antinalani because they think they're really scared of her. But they love Antipua and they can talk story with her now and they're adults, but they can't do the same thing with Antinalani. So there you go with your hula instructors. You're more comfortable with the one you learn from, and then you find you find that you get it's easy for you, to learn from them. But when you get a new instructor, you have to learn. She seems to be a little bit more strict, but to me they're both the same, But to our kids, to my kids, which is two different generations, they like Antipua. The older ones like Antipua and the younger ones like Antinala.
Can I share something also? I think Kawa, Joel, and I were kind of fortunate because during the time when we first started, like I mentioned, there was this renaissance going on of being Hawaiian. There was this identity. But there was also a recognition by some people about what needed to be done for the Lahalu, especially those with the hula. And so there was a growth of hula halal, there was a growth of hula workshops and such. One thing that they also found lacking was that there wasn't that many people chanting. And they knew, all of the people knew that without the chant, there was no hula. You had to have the chant. So I think it was the State Foundation, Culture and also the State Heritage on the White Heritage. There was this statewide effort to teach chanting. And so here in Kilo, we had the good fortune of having Antigua, and in Oahu, they had the good fortune of having Antigua and Mackenzie, the two leaders. We were down over at Kula, which is where
Pay tax on this.
North Hilo,
Social
the
services.
welfare office.
Yeah, right next to Guadalupe River. So we were in there. That used to be the Parks and Recreation office. And it was just an empty building. So we were on one side, and then on the other side had someone teaching the Japanese kata. Yeah, so that was going on. And here we were. So we had the good fortune at that time, because Auntie, we would meet with Auntie, I think once or twice a week, and she taught us how to chant.
Just get a foundation.
And through that helped to reinforce what we were doing and helped to add to that. So I know a lot of how they teach chanting. But back then, there was a recognition that they're far too few chanting.
So I was lucky enough to tag along, which was by design, of course, of my grandmother. It's my grandmother's design to say, okay, she needs to come to this, and I'm taking her to that, and we're going to let me, we're going to come pick her up at this time. This is one of the instances. Till this day, I teach chanting using those same methods.
Yeah.
And they still work.
That's it.
And
That's what she wrote. A whole light.
yeah.
That's what it was for this class.
Yeah, I remember the exercises we had to do. And I remember I practiced in the shower, just the exercises. And I went back to class and I told Auntie, I was practicing the exercises, but over here, it's really sore. Oh my God, you're doing it right. Okay, hey. Hey, it's first.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to begin to, in a few minutes, we're going to begin to ask, we're going to give you guys an opportunity to ask questions. And again, the questions should be based on their experience. And it's a varied experience, transcends time. So you want to begin thinking about what kinds of questions that, because we learn hula today, interestingly, same dances, but sometimes how we're taught or what's important in the environment of the time now gets translated through the hula process. So we want to begin to ask, this is an opportunity to think about how hula was then and what is it similar, how is it different? Because some of you are being trained to be hula. When your time comes, this is what we need to reflect on. Because we already know they're talking about intergenerational commitments. This is not just about me, I right now. It's about transcending time. And so you want to begin thinking about those. You obviously won't have enough time for all of you to ask the question. Begin thinking then. Okay.
Because in reality, we go through the same process too now in our age, at this time in our life. What we do, what are we doing? I was here Wednesday, Brittany was here Wednesday. We heard people talk about how when she learned the from her mother-in-law, there was that sense of urgency on her mother-in-law's part to teach, to pass it on. It's the same thing now because, three of us don't have active halal. Kibalo still has that active halal. But the sense of how hula is still a part of our lives has changed us. And what's our responsibility moving forward with it is something that we reflect on. We have to come to some decisions. But we're at that stage in our lives, so we're
Okay, so on that note of reflection.
I want to share something. Okay. It's kind of interesting because when you think about when Auntie Edith passed away, it was very sad. She had cancer. And she passed away in her early 60s. We're there. We're at that age when Auntie Edith, and when you think about what Auntie Edith had accomplished in that time in her life, it wasn't just within Hula. It was what she was doing for her community in Kiaukaha. It was what she was doing for students at the University of Hawaii in Hilo. It was what she was doing across the system, across the island. I mean, we would travel with her to Molokai. How her contemporaries, Auntie Harriet Day, Auntie Mary from the Kupuna of Molokai, Auntie Mary Lee, how all that relationship that she had with all the Kupuna in Keaukaha, how she mobilized them to get the Hawaiian Studies program going. Auntie Eleanor Kupuna, Auntie Miley, Acute Seal, Auntie all of them, she was able to mobilize them. So when we were with her, it was easy. Okay, I want you to do this. And we would do it. Whether it was that time, she was asked to go teach hula up in Kohala. And so it was, I think it was 2-3 months. And there were times that she couldn't make it, but Kawa and I would go up there with one of our colleagues back then, and we were teaching hula. This is back in the 77, 78. This is when Lorna Lynn was still young. Yeah, the Lynns were still very young.
And at the same time, she was teaching in Kohala and sending them out. She was also had a class in Kapu to which she would send my mother to go out and teach. At the same time, she also had a class in Hana Maui, at which she would send my mom and Auntie Lani to go out and teach. So the mobilization that's a great thing to aspire to. Yeah.
One day she told me, okay, I want you to go see Buster Jeremiah. He helped with this program. Buster Jeremiah was in Keaukaha at the time, and he had this ukulele group. Because they were part of the Kubio chapter of the church. And so I was teaching hula to the kids, and we would go travel. But that's it. Auntie Edith says, I want you to do this. You do it.
Because that one thing then affected all of those youth who were in that program, and they were in that program for a reason, to find focus. And Buster Jeremiah taught them how to play ukulele and kaeke, bass and guitar. They were in all kinds of activities which then energized them and their families to be involved. So that was another program.
And then, also in church, she used to participate. She was very, I call her gifted, because the church used to have writers contests, you could write poems, you could do this, you could do that, and that's where she created Poemelia and Kaupehi Okekai. was all at church. That was what she submitted to the church authorities as her point. And then she put it into music, and then she sang it, and then it became part of that. And even one of our other members, which was Amy Kekoolani Brown, she wrote the song "I Love You, Beatles," the one that Jay Larry sings. I love you, Beatles. But she did that in church too, for a poem contest, you know. And so many things come to part, but Auntie Edith was so talented, you know, that she participated that way, and she broadened her horizon and ours.
One of the things Kikui and I are finding, we're talking about in the 70s and 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, you know, some of us were born then. But you know, there's this movement, and so they come in and they're part of her movement, which she began that movement before they came to her. But Kikui and I are now, and then a guy that built a stone wall, you know, in the college is an old man, you know, after 50 you're old. You know, that's not we used to think. But you know, now that I'm 50, I don't know if I could change my definition of what old is. But he used to talk about Edith being the Boy Scout master, because Kauka didn't have a male Boy Scout master, so she was they were the only ones in Hawaii, maybe in a Momo'o, that was a Boy Scout master. Everybody played makahiki, but they would dance makahiki. They're still talking about that, how they influenced their life. We're on the plane.
How Mr. Henry Leon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we're on the plane and we hear about, my daughter's having a discussion with this Mormon elder, the seat behind me, and he finds out how they're related and saying that Edith today is still celebrated in the church for raising money for families to send their kids to church, college, and elsewhere. So all of these things that we didn't know, we know what she did, but there's a whole bunch of other stuff that we didn't know that she did. And somehow Hula was always, she used Hula to fundraise for the church, and people are still, she's like one of the celebrities.
We would dance at Nanilon, and the hotel used to pay the halal to dance, and she donated to the church. And that was what helped the members, you know, go to college. And she'd get all the youth involved to sing for us. You know, they had to sing, we danced, and then we did it every week at the hotel. And all the payment went to the church.
And what we know, and what we know of Hawaiian studies today in Hawaii Island, because she had, she had similar kinds of people in the communities there. She and her crew began the early beginnings of what we know as Hawaiian studies. So all us Unukupuku people in Hawaiian studies getting Hawaiian degrees, it originated with her coming, using hula to teach, and then teaching one class, and all her favorite things she liked to do, she turned it into a class. And then it gave the foundation for other people, professors to come in and build on that foundation. Now we have degrees all the way up into the highest, the doctoral level degrees in Hawaii. But we've got to look back at its origin. It comes from a woman in a Momo'o, fishing in a Momo'o.
She started the Hawaii, what is it called?
Bakohana, ethnobotany, zoology.
She taught all those classes. She was the first teacher for us. And we had the opportunity to
She had the ethnobotany class, and she would make Uncle Luca teach the implements. He was the one that made all the implements, and she taught and she told everybody where you could get the plants and whatnot. I cannot for the life of me recognize the plants. I can walk past a myline and I don't see it. My husband sees it. He goes into the forest and he can pick myline, he can pick all the plants. My son does it, Manai does it, but Uncle Luca used to do that, and I gave Auntie Nalani one of the last bamboos, the split bamboo that he taught us to make. It's flat now, but it was from him. He's the one that made it. And I still have it.
You never go to the supply store, you always make your own.
Yeah, you make your own implements and Uncle Luca used to.
One of the, when you talk about the transmission of hula from one generation to the next, one thing that at the end of her sharing, I'm sure she shared with all of us, is that like with her mother, she would have a dream and get up the next morning and be able, she would have a hula dream and she would be able to get up the next morning and teach it. And so how hula was how hula was created, the transitions of hula, wasn't just from just us, the fifth of it was also coming from this generation before her, when these hulas would come down from in the dreams. And so it's something that we think about. Because I think every once in a while, we might experience hula dreams, but are we ready to receive it to the point where we're able to wake up and remember it all? She was. And so we have to be, I think, be able to train or be acutely aware of that when these dreams come, they're very special. And so be aware of that. If you have hula dreams, you tap into a source that is very special.
So what are your dreams? Go ahead. Share them with us. Open the floor to questions for about 20 minutes. So I saw your hand up earlier.
Yeah, I was wondering, when you're making your instruments, was there any time that you named your instruments?
You name everyone.
It was a ikueke, we call it ikueke.
But now
There was no
now
for
it
the
means,
implements.
yes. Okay.
That's an interesting question.
This is a question.
A lot of people do that. Even, like, you see, like, for hula pop, sometimes people wrap the legs around the hula pop. We never did that.
Yeah.
Oh, we never, yeah. Well, so Bibi Levy was there too. So she's one of our contemporaries. She was dancing with us also. Do you remember us doing that with Waffle? Or do you remember us doing that? We never wrapped a leg around the people who had hair.
Yeah, it was new to me when I was asked to do it.
Yeah. We actually did wear a couple of martial arts.
There was no adornments on any implements.
I remember that.
Just
I think one of the first times we put something on the igloo, it was kind of a refreshing, this was like a new thing that something that when later on made for the popular. I think the hula drama, when we did hula dramas, and there was a whole different, in the 90s is when we began to incorporate some things that maybe we only saw people do, but I remember when I started, we didn't have a problem. But I remember the day we had to make a problem because one had a little ruffle and it was too big and she told me that people didn't redo it. Take the ruffle out. But I still have it. It was this small, it wasn't even 4 yards. It was just this small little, come over, gave us the material, we made a bubble, we came to it. It just had elastic.
I hate to say this too, but back then, we all had a little carpets when we did our blood ball.
So then, just to follow up with that phenomenon, so when we see things evolve and things in hula, and in all things, how do we need to reconcile that evolution? Is there a need to go back to what was at the beginning, or is there always this constant evolution that we should always embrace? And I think Uncle Kamwala said earlier that Auntie Edith helps you to see people and things, right or wrong. It was with a new perspective or a new lens, which was, a gift that she had given to you. And so is that a way for us to continue to look at things in hula and culture as well, to look at it as an evolution, or is there a right or a wrong? And how do you know when to evoke this is right, this is wrong, or this is embrace it as evolution?
Okay,
Okay, I think the traditionalists will understand. I know Kikuhi and Kaipo.
Kaipo is mine. I'm the generation.
Within any of these arts, there's these parameters. And it's within these parameters where we develop our creativity. But we have to understand, we have to know what the parameters are so that it keeps the identity of what it is. Right? So, understanding that, we are allowed to be creative. We're allowed to generate some new thoughts, but within these parameters, so that there's an identity of what it is. Once we move out of those parameters, then it becomes something else.
I think I want to ask Kamwala to share a big pivotal point in Hula Kikuhi. This is when I began. So I began when people still came to Hula in jeans, or shorts. We didn't have a formal stand in a circle. We didn't have all that kuahu. We didn't have a kuahu in the Haunted building. We just had
the shelf on the side.
had the shelf on the shelf, over the chair, the white shelf, and the photo. And that was it. But I remember hearing Kamwala. I lived with him for a little while, so I remember hearing him talk about at the point they were called because Antonelli wanted to reestablish the kuahu that was not part of our early years, and that they had to reconcile something because in Edith's time, Antonelli wanted to. They brought it up as a way, part of the reestablishing old practices, but in Edith's time, she didn't really know the time. But to talk about a huge evolution, because most people in Hawaii will only know kuahu because of the time it wasn't. So can you share the time when what was the field? How did people reconcile? What was the process of reconciling? Well, I did know that she had died, and like 10 years after her death, because she was really dead. And so, so there was this, they had to reconcile something and make it right. But you remember some of that discussion?
Well, part of it had to be, I don't know exactly when it occurred. I mean, my memory doesn't serve me. But I know that there were times when it was appropriate. Back in 1984, the halau went through a ceremony. And it's the first time that it was performed within halau kikuhi. There was a uliki ceremony. And this was for a member outside of the family. Prior to that, the only one of the ones that we knew who uliki was Edith, when she uliki from Onilika, right? It's kind of interesting because I used to sit down with people in Naiva who was a contemporary of Edith, and her sister, Dr. Stevens, who were dancing when they had the uliki, for Edith's uliki. But other than that, there wasn't any talk of Edith's uliki until 1984. And whoever Lani decided that it was time to have it. So with that came the kuahu. Whether it was, I don't know if it was established permanently at that time, or if it was just for the ceremony, but just for that uliki. But there was this sense that this was needed, and it would help to bring a little more focus to what we were doing within the home. Does that?
So I do remember that uliki, but just started dancing hula and I was invited. It was the first time I was seeing plants and chants being organized and not as decoration, but as a piece. But we're still in the old halal, the hottest building. This community that I remember was down in Kilkaha. But we're still in the halal. It was the establishment of the Kuahu began when we moved to Spencer's.
Yeah.
That's when we were like out of, it was a new space in our new time. But I remember we all had to learn. I remember Antipo teaching us, and Ami, and we had to learn a whole new set of ritual, which required a whole new commitment. So we couldn't come to hula anymore stoned. Couldn't come to hula drunk. You got kicked out if you conducted yourself inappropriately. As halal people, there were a few times when we witnessed Oki when they closed the door, they got to go out, they closed the door, it's a big thing. And so it was, and I think it was at that time when Puanalani realized that if halal Kikuyu was going to be a larger contributor to the nation's movement, we needed to sort of find a return, or perhaps not return, because there's no return, but you can bring back some of the older focus and practices and discipline.
Well, I think what they followed, they had to determine what was necessary to move forward, and the ku'ahu was necessary.
And the interesting thing is, Mary Pukui sent an envelope to them. And in the envelope had all of this ku'ahu chants. So it's interesting, although some halals were not comfortable doing it, the hula practitioners would send the right information to the right people. So how they conducted themselves on Sunday when they went to church, they also had many or multiple lives, and sometimes they would continue feeding the old practices. So I remember we got that envelope and we got all of that chants in there. That was sort of like the support to take it take it further.
And so you were dancing back in 70?
No, I danced in 82.
82.
When you
I
started.
was 16.
I look 16, I was 19. Thank you, Koma.
The ramp, right?
Yeah.
One of my good friends, Pt.1, when Waiakea High School first opened up, they would have a grade, and she was their studies teacher. And so she told me, come on, you come talk to this guy. He wants to learn hula. So I came on campus and I met him. We're sitting down in the stairwell talking about hula. And then, okay, why don't you come? He met from there. Were you there?
I remember when you first.
84, yes, I was. That was the first real Hawaiian. I was really, I wouldn't say I was uncomfortable, I was intrigued. Because what I heard growing up about hula, the little whispers, you got to spend 20 years picking up whispers. And the little whispers that I heard that was always said in very controlled groups was being acted out. And I realized I was in a special place, so what do? You just disappear. And and I just sat there because I wasn't sure. I just started dancing hula. I mean, I wasn't dancing more than 6 months, and I wasn't just as an observer. And so I thought that was, again, you hear the stories, you hear the whispers, you get pieces of the puzzle. And then I think what Halal Kikuyu did for me was to bring the pieces of the puzzle together and then eventually have me step into it. And I thought that was, so it wasn't about reading. The stories were not just being told, now they're being acted out, we're contributing chapters to it. So.
But going back to your question about identifying my response about parameters. So this was a new thing for Kuala. So within the parameters of Kuala, they had to come to they had to learn, they had to come to some understanding about how it was going to affect their life and how they were going to have that as part of the guidance of Kuala for the effort.
For effort.
before they were able to transmit it to another person. Because like I said, this is foreign. This was not foreign. This wasn't done before. I mean, so there's some things I think they learned because they had a second community back in like 2007. So back then, there was only one person. In 2007, there were 13 people.
And then we can take. Oh, let's take one more question. Yeah.
So each of you were learning from Auntie Edith. I just wanted to know what you might, or what you, how do you say, I don't know, you keep or you remember about Auntie that when you were learning the hula with Auntie Edith. I mean, there's many answers, but then is there something very special about her that you remember and you keep with you like for a lifetime?
Yeah, she was so loving. I just felt an immediate, as soon as I met her, I loved her and I wanted to learn from her. And she was so fun. She had a great sense of humor. I can still hear her laugh. I can hear her speaking in my head, the things that she would say and share with me. She was just a delightful person to be around, and you wanted more, because she just kept feeding me all this wonderful information and just sharing her aloha. I found out what aloha was from her. And I teach the way I learned from her. It made such an impression on me that
Colin?
I guess for me, Auntie's, that whole thrust, the whole of trying to pass a lot of information and trying to kind of carry that as much as possible. And she was doing that really at the time that she couldn't do it anymore because of her very bad illness. So in lecture class, in a nice way, she said, so I would go up and write for her. So she still can conduct the class and lecture. But it's that kind of, that dedication, that drive, that commitment that she was actually doing. Remember, she did a drive her all the way to the corner, for some client to drive all the way back. She would look for Daddy, can you take me and drive me to? So Uncle Luca, you'd always be in a humble and he said, try for her. And he needed the Kibao said, her how she is. But I recognize her determination that this has to be passed. This information cannot be lost. Got to be carried on. Got to be passed. We just have to be, in the passing zone, not in the passing zone. In the time that she was given.
I think she had a sense of urgency, but it wasn't. I mean, she was doing it all her life. So, it was just a way of life.
Her whole life was teaching everybody in her way, her mannerism, and sometimes she made a bad incident turn out really good, I, for one, am a perfectionist, and if you get something that you plan out, and so you expect it to go that way, and sometimes along the line, something comes up, and you have to change, or you have to divert, I get all bent out of shape. And Edith will just say, okay, now let's just do this, and then she improvises. And she just moves on, and you reach the same destination, but in a different way. And she makes it a lot more fun, or that you don't even think that you're all bent out of shape. You just do it with her, and she makes it so nice,
I want to share something about Auntie's class. She would say, let's go in the car, and we're going to go all down until we choke out.
Yeah.
And that was class. She would share all of all the different kind of section from Ice Pond all the way down to Lady Point. Yeah. That was class. And another class was she said, you bring your fishing pole, and you go down to Palikai, and over there she talks about all the elements, the fish, the different types of limu, and everything, all in Hawaiian. That was classroom. It was a small group.
And nobody knew she didn't swim. When I asked you, she didn't swim.
Never
She
saw her in
said
the water.
She never knew how to swim, but she would walk in the water just enough way that she wouldn't fall in or whatnot. But we all went there, not even thinking.
And she
that
shared this
she
story
couldn't
about
save
the
us.
ulua that she saw in this local way. And then there was a soda box, was a wooden soda box. So she grabbed it and she put it over this big papio, I think, that ulua too. And she sat on it. And she waited until somebody would pass, along the road or something, and then she would try to flag them down, and then try to get her customer.
She did it one time
Yeah,
with her.
and then she tried to get somebody to come, get Uncle Luke, get Daddy, and come get me, because I'm sitting on this box that has this big papio ulua inside. And she said, and she took it home.
One last thing about her. So, her mother, I think passed away in 1975. And I think when we first did the marijuana, it was still at the Civic Auditorium. But she, I don't know, 78 maybe, moved over to the States. Yeah. The year before that, she had written a group at Yokai, and they played it. And she got up on stage and danced. Paul and I were behind her and we signed dancing with her. You could just see the joy and this twinkle in her eye that I'll always remember, whether it was in the classroom, on stage, dancing, whatever. She had this twinkle in her eye that was a joy to watch. Sometimes you'd see her just kind of, she had this glaze in her eye, like, she was off thinking about something else. And sometimes, we did something, she would roll her eyes, but she had this thing on her eyes, this way of communicating with her eyes. And making us feel good.
So much story to go on for days.
The same guy that Kamuela was then taken to the university, Mapuana drove him to the university, which was not what we grew up to think we're going to go to university. There was smart, rich people. And so I was at the university to meet Auntie Edith. And I did see her eyes, and I used to think it was watery. Her eyes always seemed very watery. Yeah. And I remember she looked, and her class was full of people. People were sitting on the floors, and then there's literally there was heat coming out of the classes. There was so much people. And she was in the front, and was in the nursing portables at UH by the old gym. And Mapuana,
she passed away.
I guess so. Mapuana, walked in. She was expecting me. Mapuana says she's going to bring a student. So it's interesting that when they hear that there's someone that has interest, people make the opportunity to meet the person to see what they can do to contribute to that interest. Yeah. So Kamuela met and gave me, I was so intimidated because the class was so full and just being on campus and smart people, and then there's this really gentle one glance, you know, look, she's looking and she's doing this. And I was at the door like this. And everybody's just staring like, oh, this poor kid, they thought I was going to faint because I really thought I was just going to just drop. But she was like this. And then I just couldn't budge, and my phone was just like, come on, I worked so hard to get you here, come on. And then she told my boy, oh, no, it's okay. Bye-bye, you'll come. Bye-bye, you'll come. And I remember she didn't have that. Well, how prophetic that was. But when I was ready, I did come, and luckily there are, again, people who would tie my malo, tie my pa'u kao to make the nicest pa'u. For years, I just got my pa'u tied to one of the other one of brothers said I got to get it together and tie my own pa'u. You know, this is not the end of the conversation. You know these people, they're in our community. Make opportunities to talk and hear stories, because sometimes what we need to hear cannot be found in the books. They gotta come down from a human being. That's the, you know, we wanted to get a reading since 1820 here in Hawaii. Everything prior to that was through this storytelling, so that when you're in a moment, you've spent many years putting all the whispers together, and then it makes sense. So the magic is still happening. Now what we want to do is translate that into academic terms. And then guess what? Eden already set the precedence, you know, by not getting all hung up on just the linear movement. Sometimes you have to tack and then you arrive. How to always, maybe the student is not ready today, but maybe the student is ready tomorrow, you know. And obviously, you know, different ages, different ethnicities play. And what we did here, what we collect all the time, was she never asked people if you were this or you were that. She was concerned that she had something that she would give you to begin to act and think Hawaiian, even to the point of giving you names if you weren't born with a name. Then it was the generosity extended there, which meant they had some kind of kuriana for that. There were a lot of gems that were shared. You know, I just wrote a number of it down, and I'm not going to review it with you, but Darren's is going to come into my my little hula journal. But we want to thank every one of you for sharing your truth. And that's the beautiful thing about this kind of discussion, because we're not asking them to define somebody else's truth. Because oftentimes we might find us making a judgment that may not reflect that person's truth. But when you speak of your own story, it's your own truth. I like the idea of the plural eyes. You know, Kamula just kind of started, you know, because somebody went around Marymount yelling kawa, 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 and then doing something like that. You know, there's going to be the eyes today are a little bit different, a little bit more critical, which is not a bad thing. But sometimes the critical eye does not necessarily help advance the passion. So it's good to have multiple eyes, because sometimes when the world is critiquing you for not being good, all you need is one magical eye to say, maybe today is awkward, but tomorrow is going to be a whole lot more better. And sometimes that's how we've advanced. Someone always gave us the challenge, or gave us a bigger vision to look at. So, again, thank you very much. I could talk to Kamala because we work in a university system. Then I had to go call Kamakani, how do you see him? And then Kibala is trying to find her. It's it's hard. And then Auntie Sherry had to go through her family. But you all came, and you all made it easy to bring us together. I've always wanted to bring us together for a while. And it took a while for me to actually make an opportunity. This whole series came because Gail likes to compete, and in this case with the Bishop Museum, the Bishop Museum put together a hula series. You know, it's a great hula series, but she said, I think we can do that. She gave me the pamphlet. She says, create something. But we wanted to create not just tell us your hula story, but really how do you interpret that to your life? How does those hula stories help advance? Whether you're in hula or not, there's a lot of value that was being said and shared. So, it's about being innovative. And it's about always saying yes. But you gotta say the right yes. So if you're in the right place, and if you know your vision, no matter what yes you say, it's good. When the yes doesn't work, that's probably because our vision is a little blurry and we might be standing on the wrong base. So, find your base, find your vision, your passion, your commitment, and then all the yeses will be easy because then all the people will come and will help. I've never heard these terms about how she created satellites. You guys do this and all that happening at the same time. What a genius. In academia, we call it satellites. Satellites. So she did a great, and we sing her name, and we still dance her songs, we still talk about her. Even if, some people, you just see them once, and they just give you what nobody else in the world could give you. And I think she did that for me, and introduced me to a beautiful world of dancers. And a culture. So I want to say thank you to Kikuhi. And she has also sometimes she'll get up and the first time she got up, she had a few drinks around this party place, and she started doing like Puka Puka Pants or the Hawaii Maori song, and she started doing Tahitian. She would like tuck her potato in her panty and she walked around the house and do this. And our kids would go, why is Mama acting silly? They never know that she actually learned all of those Polynesian dances. So, it's quite humbling. It's nice to know that, we have to go this and here. We have to adjust. And that's why the canoe has to be lashed really well, because if it's only lashed one way, it may not handle the kinds of different waves and currents we have in our ocean. So that lash it really well. Thank you again. We do have just a little makana to say mahalo, but our biggest makana is having it affect our lives and how we think. And on a personal note, thank you for taking good care of me as a hula dancer. It was just great. These two actually were the most gentle people I had.
Kimana will taught me how to be a hippie.
I used to not eat. When I get excited to perform, I used to not eat. So after the performance, I'll get this big fever, gassy stomachs. Everybody's partying, and I'm in fever. So Kibala was on the stage, so she would come and she massaged my stomach. And she says, I'm not doing this again. I'm going to show you how to do it. So that's what she taught me, how to massage my own stomach so she could continue to party. But even massaging my stomach because I didn't eat.
It's kind of funny that, the pua malani that you folks know now is not the pua malani we grew up with. When Nalani first moved back from home, she was a little wild. She had her piercing. One night we were taking tequila and we had this plan. She fished her nose, I fished my ear. We had rubies done. But what was really great about her, wherever she went, we can all attest to it, she always had her ukulele. Wherever she went, whether the beach, at home, anywhere, she always had her ukulele.
She points you and says, get up and does it. She still does it.
All right, so it was a little wild back then. Auntie used to roll her eyes about her. So, Pua was a little more, your mom was a little more,
From San Francisco, she
she was a little bit too.
Again, thank you again for spending your evening. Hula people, we hope you got to see a reflection of yourselves here. We were all very, very young at one time. We're still young in the spirit, but sometimes the body gets a little older. So, use your strengths really well. Make good decisions.
And no need retire.
No need
Just keep doing your passion in different areas, making networks, making bigger satellites. No need to do somebody else's idea of what life work is all about. when I'm 60, I want to retire. You know, that's cute. But that's another life way. Do what you want to do in different areas of your life. Help people. You know? So that's what I learned. Thank you.
So before you go, you're not going to leave until we get a survey from you. We like 100% participation. You don't have to do a survey, but you guys please do. There is some water out there, some fruit. Please help yourself. And please, so long they're not rushing to the car, if they want to leave and have a conversation with them, please be sensitive of their time. Okay. I want to say thank you very much. Leo hilo kamwade kawani ae haikuni wa haikuni alo ako maya we maya konukona ne inukolo yaka he kawe kaheme kala ele kawe hele banyono hila ele kawe hele banyono hila Kami